short-term but long-term. This evening we have a few members of our facility committee represented, but also we have Rick Frazies and Kent Pilcher present as well from Estes, and I'm going to have them start the conversation off.
Great, thank you very much. Exciting to be here. We had the pleasure of attending the Facilities Committee meeting last week, and we thought tonight we would give you a little update on the meeting and the process. And then there are two members who volunteered from the Facilities Committee, Jim Moody and Jenna Miller, to really kind of give you their insights. So in other words, we'll give you the framework and then have them join us as well to give you the Facilities Committee's impression and recommendation. So the context would be the last Monday night, Andy was ill and fallen ill, and Dan was honored with the presence to stand in for Andy and fill him in. And we chunked the meeting down into two pieces. The first was the information that had been presented at all the public meetings on the options, some of the staff feedback, the public feedback, the trends of where the support was coming in, and really gave them a full update since their last meeting. Then we provided them with some context, which is to say how we got involved a little over a year ago when the district was considering the question of a high school or not, and we encouraged the district to really look at an overall plan of what we would do to accommodate 1,000 students over the 10 years. And so the course of that became the Fielding Nair study, and then the three options became the outcome from that, and those were the three options the Facilities Committee was then going to vet out. So Dan had taken them through some discussion around each of those options and how they felt, and then we facilitated really more of a process of that. And it was a very favorable evening. You know, these are great challenges to have. There are a lot of districts we're in around the state who don't have the luxury of having 1,000 students coming in over the next 10 years. A number of them are flatline or shrinking, and so to be able to look at this and say these are challenges we're faced with are encouraging and much more rewarding challenges to be under consideration. So we walked through that, and I'd like to invite Jim and Jenna up to really give a report on that. And as I do that, you know, we're really where we thought we would be about now. If you remember the long timeline we developed and then amended, it was that we would come to a point in June, which is where we are, where we will have vetted all of this out and bring this back to you with the public input, with staff input, the public input, and the Facilities Committee's input, to bring back to you and then determine how you wanted to move forward. There are statute considerations. If there's to be a September referendum, the ballot has to be formulated in July sometime, right, Doug? July, I don't remember.
25th
is the last possible date. So our target in the past was to bring that back to you in June, and then if there were any adjustments that needed made, allowed you the month of June to still hit the July date to formulate the ballot. So that's really where we are. Here we are on the 9th of June. Having gone through that process with information that culminated with the facilities meeting, and now bring it forward for your consideration. Jim and Jim.
Sure, thank you. First, as a member of the Facilities Committee, we'd just like to thank the board with tasking us with this project. Cedar Falls has a long-standing tradition of excellence in education, and we want to make sure that what we do continues that tradition into the future, and that's what this plan and culmination of all these efforts has been about, really, is what can we do for 30, 40, 50 years in the future. It has been a long, deliberate process, and I can safely say that by no member of this committee was it taken lightly. Through the information that was given through Estes and Fielding Nair and the 10 community forums and the public surveys and this group's surveys, there was a lot of information that was gathered and a lot of input that was brought to the table by many different groups representing different sectors of the community. So it may have been a fairly small sampling, but yet it was a very broad in scope. So do you have anything thoughts?
Well, I think that the best thing that we could have done is what we did do, and that was kind of take a step back and really look at all decide of our options, what was gonna be the best for the community and for the students in Cedar Falls. And we've been in countless meetings, and we've been touring every building, and we've really done our homework and looked at what we, as a committee, the facilities committee, looked at what would be the best for our community and our students. And I think we've really done a lot of work to come up with what we think is going to be the best options.
And I think what started off with the question of new high school, no new high school, by stepping back and really making this a in-depth process, we realized that we had a larger district-wide problem and had to expand on that. And that is where, as a group, we came up with the recommendation to the board that we would fully support the $4.05 bond levy and endorse option Plan B, along with considering options that are hanging out there in Plan C, and to pursue those options through any source of private or non-private funding that we can come up with. And that was the recommendation that the committee as a whole came up with at last week's meeting. Does any of the board members have any questions for myself or Jenna that we can try and answer that may clear anything up about what we've done or discussed in your eyes?
And if I may, I think please, the sentiment was certainly there that the facilities committee recognized the limitations on the levy of 405, but yet how, if we could, to get more of the items in option C, if there were other funding sources, or so sort of that tension of here's really what the levy will allow us to do, but this would be a great effort if we could do that.
Yeah, through independent fundraising, private capital programs, whatever we can come up with to fund those projects to truly make it a complete project from day one. We understand there may be limitations on that, but we want to do what is best for our students, the district, and the community as a whole as early on in the process as we can.
Questions for Jim? Facilities committee, we have a couple more representatives here also, so.
I don't know if I have any questions. I think I want to thank you guys for doing all the work, because I do think the breadth of the group, we tried to have a lot of stakeholder groups in there, so it was very representative of the community like you referenced, and so I think that gives a lot of credibility to your decision, and I think that could speak volumes to the community as we brought, so thank you for doing that. It's a lot of work, but.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a extremely positive process and outcome from, I think, everyone's perspective in the group.
And I want to say thank you for stepping back and.
I think that was huge.
That is. This is a long-term for all of our students.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to do it right, I think, is kind of how we all really felt. Is if we're going to do it, let's, like I said, take a step back and really look at the district as a whole and see what's going to be the best for everyone involved. So I appreciate you guys.
Go ahead, Jim.
I think it's a little maybe fortuitous and irony that the book we're studying this night tonight is Culture's Built to Last. And I think that's exactly what we've undertaken. And I move that we approve the recommendation from the District Facility Committee, and we pursue Plan B with the idea that we also could incorporate some of the other Plan C, providing fundraising and extra funds.
Okay. Do I have a second? It's been seconded by Susan. Any further discussion or questions?
We talked about pursuing aspects of Plan C through other funding sources. Because who does that? Is that something that the school district does, or does an organization form that does that? I don't understand exactly how that works.
That would be done in a couple different models, in a couple different ways. One of the things that we've had some of discussions with our community, or our school foundation on potentially that aspect as well, maybe a conduit to help allow some of those gifting opportunities. We would have to revisit and review potentially some of our work policies regarding some of those aspects. We just need to be diligent and follow the due process in those aspects. But the district can undertake that, and I think we would look towards other certainly community experts that are out there to help us set something like that up, and processes like that up, because districts aren't always good about going out and asking for funding in that kind of capacity, so we would certainly rely on our community experts as well. So I'd say it would be a combination.
If we move forward instead of $4.05, we don't know for certain what all these things will cost.
That would be,
Anyway, right?
you know, as we walk through this with, I think the first motion, when we talk about receiving and accepting the district facility committee recommendation, which is what Dr. Kenyon stated, that there's another motion to move forward with the facility committee recommendation, which would follow the acceptance and receiving their committee recommendation. And I would say part of that recommendation should include that you direct the administration to work with our school attorneys, our bond counsel, as well as our local design teams, so we can finalize and review all the final price quotes and options, to bring that back to ensure that everything within that Plan B plus Plan C, we have some firmer cost figures associated with that.
One of the, if I may, one of the suggestions why the 405 was their motion was that that's the way the ballot won't be. So we thought there ought to be a consistency in that particular language with the encouragement to say, let's try and let's get all of B and as much as C as we can within the 405. We thought that's an important public perception to really track that through their recommendation, ultimately yours, and then the ballot.
But when we actually put things out for bid, we don't know exactly what, we'll do more.
We may, exactly, we may. The opposite could occur too. That's why you just have to be due diligent going through the price options now, so at least we have an understanding of what should be or could be included in that ballot language, based on if we do the 405, then we know what should be listed within that call to question.
One thing that's important, that I think was important for the facilities committee here, is the land area considered for the new high school will accommodate all of those in time. So that's been planned for, no matter whether we can do this now or parts of this now and all of this later. That's all in the master plan in terms of the land area, and then some growth beyond that. So that's, I think the facilities committee felt better when they said that no matter what, we're going to have enough land mass.
And that was one question that was talked about fairly in length, was to ensure that whatever the 405 rate allows for today facility-wise, is that the campus is large enough, and this is all about the long-term planning behind this, is to ensure that the campus is large enough to accommodate future facilities, so that even though we may not be able to fiscally supply them today, 5 years down the road when the availability is there, to do that and try and eliminate some of the issues that arise with having students having to go here and there for extracurriculars after school, to make sure we can try and get as much as possible on one campus.
I think the adage rings true. If we build it, they will come. Infill will occur around any kind of a new structure in the building, so you have to plan accordingly to make sure you have enough acreage so you can expand in the future. You know, I think many people remember the current high school, when that was built, that was in a cornfield. It infilled very quickly.
Dave, you were talking to me also,
Well, this just seems rather anticlimactic. Of course, we have a long ways to go yet. But I've been sitting in on the meeting since last fall, and you have too, right? Yeah, right. And you were there last week. So I'd like to echo the thanks, and the conversations all during this last year have been very thoughtful and independent, well thought out. So I think Jim mentioned that the input came broadly from many different things and different places, and that was a thing that impressed me was all the different angles that the input came from. And I appreciate the committee's patience in working on this. I don't know how long the three of you have been on the committee. It's been
5 years.
5, okay.
A little over 2.
Yeah, and so I just want to thank the entire committee for the dedication and willing to stick to this and see it through. So thank you.
Brett Bain and Dwayne Hamilton are also here.
You know, the one thing that's worthy of the board remembering is when you undertook this process, one of the pieces of feedback you wanted was that it appear you have a very deliberate approach to this, and those aren't words we used last week with the facilities committee, but it's really reassuring. I think you should know that it's reassuring that that's the way they articulated it tonight, because that's where we started last March or April, was to take that step back and appear to be very deliberate, and then you also want to be very transparent. And so, again, I think there's a strong feeling there's been a lot of transparency here. So that, while this isn't, it feels anticlimactic, this is really halftime. You're in the lead, I think, so far, and we've got the second half of the game to play, but it's halftime. You know, it's an important milestone to recognize.
Go ahead.
Several of the aspects of Plan B are actually saving money. Does the way the accounting works in the money we're saving offsets the cost, or are these two different pots of money that I shouldn't be thinking of that?
No, it's a good question. And what we've done is kind of base this on a broad range of costs so far. And we try to base it on costs, not on savings. But there are going to be some savings. And now as we dig in with the work of our attorney, our design teams, as well as the bond counsel, I think we're going to be able to refine some of those numbers a little bit more to make it specific, because that's what part of that bond question is going to entail. We need to know kind of what the cost analysis and the finite figure at the end. So we have not really factored in, if we do happen to sell this building or sell another building to be able to relocate potentially as one of the options into the current high school, those dollar amounts of selling those properties aren't factored into the overall cost balance yet. They are not. Okay. But again, there's such a wide range of costs right now that once we refine them a little bit more, we'll be able to have those numbers much more clearly articulated.
If we approve this tonight, what's next?
That would be obviously right now, currently item number N. Those next steps will be that we will work with our design team, we'll work with our attorney, we'll work with our bond counsel, just now refine those numbers down. We may need potentially a special session sometime to be able to go back over those to make sure that everything's in alignment with the recommendations and the cost estimates. From there, we will work with a committee, organizing committee with the vote yes committee, because the next steps will be to garner signatures on a ballot or signatures on a petition to be able to bring to the board to have this placed on the ballot, and that needs to be done by July 25th to be able to put it on the ballot. Roughly about 650. Like I said, this is halftime, but it's almost at the end of the first quarter. I would say. We've got a lot of work ahead of ourselves, which is exciting, but a lot of work that's already been done to be able to help get this into them.
And if we can help with the ES committee on strategies and mediums, and one thing you might think about is how you might ask them to report back to you what's going on as well. They aren't under any obligation to do that, but just as a consideration to keep you in the loop and communicate, that's a good practice. But
I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation from the facility committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for all your support with this.
Brett, thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for moving us up on the agenda.